You felt it this morning, that moment when you sat on the edge of the bed and swung your feet down to the floor, and something felt different. Not painful, not dramatic, just off, a low buzzing in the soles, a faint heaviness in the toes that wasn't there last year. You stood up, took a few steps toward the bathroom, and you told yourself, I must have slept on it wrong, and you moved on with your day. But it happened yesterday too, and the day before. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you've been keeping a quiet count. I'm going to show you 9 signs, and I'm going to count them down from 9 to 1, and number 1 is the one that changes everything. By the time we get there, you're going to understand why so many people miss this for years, and what you can do starting today. Most people believe that diabetes can only be caught by a blood test. You go to your doctor, the lab work comes back, and that's when you find out. I understand why people think that. For years, that's what most patients told me too. My name is Dr. Jane, and I've been practicing medicine for over 2 decades. And what I've learnt, what I see confirmed in my office every single week, is that your body starts warning you about high blood sugar long before any lab result ever would. And the very first place your body speaks up is your feet. The reason I'm making this video is because of how many patients I've seen walk into my office, or worse, walk into an emergency room, who had every warning sign for months, sometimes years, and never knew what they were looking at. One woman, 63 years old, retired schoolteacher from Ohio, came in for what she thought was a persistent foot infection. She'd been treating it herself for 3 months with over-the-counter antifungal cream. By the time she sat in my exam room, the wound had deepened significantly. She had 6 of the 9 signs I'm going to walk you through today. Her fasting blood sugar came back at 228. She had been diabetic for at least 2 years without knowing it. That story still stays with me. Not because it was unusual, but because it wasn't. Because I've seen versions of it dozens of times. So today I want to show you exactly what I showed her. 9 signs that were already on her feet, and on millions of feet right now, that almost nobody recognizes for what they are. For each one, I'll tell you what most people assume it is, what is actually happening inside your body, and one concrete daily habit that can protect you. The American Diabetes Association estimates that 1 in 5 Americans with diabetes don't even know they have it. That's over 8 million people walking around right now with a silent condition quietly damaging their nerves, their kidneys, their vision, and yes, their feet. The good news is that a $12 blood test can catch this early. But first, you need to know what to look for. Before we dive in, if you're finding this useful, take 2 seconds right now, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a video, and give this a thumbs up. It genuinely helps more people like you find this content. And drop a comment below. Tell me what country you're watching from. I'd love to know where our community is tuning in from, around the world. Hold on a second. Before we go any further, I've put something together for you. It's called the Glucose Paradox. It's a free guide on blood sugar and diabetes, and you can grab it for free through the link in the description. I'm telling you this now because I want you to finish this video with a concrete tool in your hands. To get it right away, just click the link in the description, head over to my site, and drop your email. You'll receive the guide in your inbox a few minutes later. But I don't want to take up any more of your time. Let's get back to the video. But here is the question I always ask my patients. Is this happening regularly, without a clear reason? Because if the answer is yes, we need to have a very different conversation. Think of your nerves like electrical wires. Every wire has a plastic coating around it. That coating is what allows the signal to travel cleanly from your brain to your foot. When blood sugar stays elevated over time, it's like a mild acid slowly eating through that coating. The wire still works for a while, but the signals start getting fuzzy. And that fuzziness, that tingling you feel in the soles or the toes, is your nervous system sending you a message you haven't learnt to read yet. Frequent, recurring numbness or tingling in the feet, what doctors call peripheral neuropathy, is one of the earliest signs that blood sugar has been elevated for some time. The extra glucose in your bloodstream begins attacking the outer protective sheath of your peripheral nerves. It is a slow process, which is exactly why most people miss it. There are no alarm bells. There's no sudden pain. just a quiet, persistent fuzziness that most people chalk up to age or posture. Now, you might be thinking, I've had that tingling feeling for years and my doctor never mentioned diabetes. Doesn't that mean it's probably nothing? The short answer is, not necessarily. Peripheral neuropathy can exist for years before it shows up on a standard checkup, unless your doctor is specifically testing for it. Many patients I've seen had neuropathy symptoms for 18 months or more before a glucose test confirmed what their feet were already telling us. According to the American Diabetes Association, peripheral neuropathy affects nearly 50% of people with diabetes. It is the single most common complication, and it almost always starts in the feet, which means right now, tens of millions of people are experiencing this tingling and writing it off as nothing. You don't have to be one of them. The daily habit I recommend here is simple and costs nothing: a 20 to 30-minute walk every single day. Not a jog, not a race, a walk. Movement is the single best thing you can do to keep blood flowing to your feet and protect those nerve endings from further damage. Pair that with a meaningful reduction in added sugar. Not next month, not after the holidays. Today. That combination, daily movement and reduced sugar, is the foundation everything else is built on. That's number 9. A lot of people chalk this up to being on their feet all day. Maybe the summer heat, maybe fatigue, and sometimes that is exactly what it is. But when a patient tells me their feet feel like they are burning, especially at night, especially when they're lying flat with nothing touching the soles, I take that very seriously. Burning in the soles of the feet, particularly at night, is a classic early marker of diabetic neuropathy. Here is what's actually happening inside your body. The nerves in your feet have been altered by excess glucose, and now they are sending incorrect signals to your brain. Your brain receives a heat message, even though nothing hot is touching your foot. The nerves are misfiring. Think of it like a fire alarm with a damaged sensor. The building is not on fire, but the alarm is going off anyway, because the sensor itself is broken. Your nervous system is doing exactly the same thing. The burning is not coming from outside your body. It is coming from damaged nerve tissue that is crying out for help from the inside. Research published in the journal Diabetes Care found that burning foot pain is one of the first reported symptoms in patients later diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, often presenting 1 to 3 years before a formal diagnosis. 3 years. That is how long some people spend lying awake at night, wondering what is wrong with their feet, before anyone connects it to blood sugar. You've probably noticed this yourself, or someone you know has mentioned it. Burning feet at night, that no cream, no soak, no elevation seems to fix. That is not a circulation problem from a long day. That is nerve tissue sending an SOS. 2 habits I recommend specifically for this sign. First, drink at least 8 full glasses of water every day. Proper hydration supports your kidneys in flushing excess glucose and gives nerve tissue the fluid environment it needs to function. Second, add more fiber to every single meal. Vegetables, legumes, oats, beans. Fiber slows the absorption of sugar into your bloodstream, which reduces the glucose load hitting those nerve endings every time you eat. These 2 changes alone, hydration and fiber, can meaningfully slow the progression of neuropathic symptoms when blood sugar is the underlying cause. That's number 8. I've had patients say to me, "Dr. Jane, I had a small blister from my shoe about 3 weeks ago. It still hasn't healed." They waited. They put a bandage on it. They applied antibiotic ointment. They assumed it would close on its own. Most small wounds do heal on their own, but not, and this is critical, not when blood sugar is elevated. When blood sugar is consistently high, your body loses its ability to heal efficiently. Here is the mechanism. The blood vessels throughout your body, including the tiny delicate capillaries in your feet, begin to narrow and stiffen. This means that oxygen, white blood cells, and the nutrients responsible for repairing damaged tissue simply cannot reach the wound fast enough. The wound sits there, open, vulnerable, and achingly slow to close. Imagine trying to water a garden with a hose that has a serious kink in it. The water is there, the pressure is there, but it's not getting where it needs to go. That is exactly what high blood sugar does to circulation in your feet. All the healing ingredients exist in your blood. They simply cannot reach the wound because the delivery route has been compromised. And an open wound that will not close is an infection waiting to happen. The Centers for Disease Control reports that diabetic foot ulcers are the leading cause of non-traumatic lower limb amputations in the United States, over 100,000 per year. The majority of those amputations were preceded by a small wound that someone waited too long to address. Here is what I tell every patient after this visit. Tonight, after your bath or shower, sit down in good light and look at both of your feet carefully. Look at the soles, look between every toe, check the heels. If you see any cut, any blister, any broken skin, clean it with mild soap and water, apply antiseptic and cover it. If it has not improved meaningfully within 48 hours, call your doctor, not next week. 48 hours? That timeline matters. That's number 7. Patients see their feet or ankles turning darker, more reddish, or with a brownish discoloration, and they tell me, I think it's sun damage, or I've always had darker skin on my ankles. And that may be true, but there is a specific pattern of discoloration around the lower legs and ankles that I look for very carefully when I'm assessing blood sugar risk. When circulation is compromised by chronically elevated blood sugar, the lower legs and feet stop receiving enough fresh oxygenated blood. The skin changes as a result. You may see a darkening or deep red patches, or even a faint bluish tint around the ankles. In some patients, the skin in those areas also becomes thinner and more fragile, another sign that the tissue is not being properly nourished from below. Think of your blood as a delivery truck, carrying oxygen and nutrients. Your feet are at the end of the longest delivery route in your body, further from your heart than almost anything else. When the roads narrow because of damaged blood vessels, the deliveries stop arriving on time. The skin, starved of fresh oxygen, changes color. It is a distress signal you can see with your own eyes if you know what you are looking for. A study published in the Journal of the American Academy of Dermatology found that these visible skin changes in the lower extremities are detectable, on average, 18 months before a formal diabetes diagnosis. 18 months of visible evidence, sitting there on your legs before anyone makes the connection. The daily habit I recommend here is 5 minutes of ankle circles, toe raises, and gentle calf stretches every single morning before you put your shoes on. Even that small amount of targeted movement gets blood flowing into the feet and lower legs. And if mobility is limited, even elevating your feet slightly while you rest can make a meaningful difference in reducing the pressure on those compromised vessels. That's number 6. Now here is something I want to ask you directly, and I want you to sit with this for a moment. We have been through 4 signs so far, and I want to know if any of them have felt familiar. That tingling in the soles, the burning at night, a wound that healed more slowly than it should have, a patch of discoloration on an ankle you have been noticing for a while. If any of that sounds like something you have experienced, or something you have noticed in a spouse, a parent, a sibling, go to the comments section right now and type the word yes. Just that. I read every single comment on this channel, every one, and I want to know who is watching and what you are living with. And here is something I have not told you yet. Something that ties together why these signs appear in this specific order, in the feet, before anywhere else in the body. We will come back to that in a few minutes. Keep watching. My heels crack every winter. It is just dry skin. I hear that constantly, and I want to be honest. Yes, cracked heels in the winter are extremely common and usually nothing to worry about. But when your heels are cracking badly in the middle of summer, or when no moisturizer, however thick, however frequently applied, seems to make a lasting difference, that is a completely different story, and it deserves a completely different explanation. Diabetes affects what are called the autonomic nerves, the nerves that control automatic body functions you never consciously think about, regulating body temperature, managing sweat production, controlling moisture levels in the skin. When these nerves are damaged by chronic high blood sugar, the sweat glands in your feet stop working properly. Your feet lose their natural moisture from the inside out. No lotion fixes the root cause, because the root cause is not the surface of your skin. It is the nerve signal that should be telling your skin to stay hydrated. Think of your skin like a brick wall that needs to stay sealed and weatherproof. When those autonomic nerves are damaged, The mortar between the bricks starts crumbling. Cracks appear, not at random, but at the points of greatest pressure and least circulation, the heels. And those cracks are not just cosmetic. In a foot with already compromised circulation, even a shallow heel crack is an open invitation for bacteria. An infection that starts in a heel crack, in a foot where blood flow is restricted, can become serious very quickly. The American Podiatric Medical Association identifies chronic, hard-to-treat heel cracking as a significant indicator of autonomic neuropathy in older adults, a condition directly linked to long-term elevated blood sugar. Autonomic neuropathy is not a minor nuisance. It is a sign that a significant part of your nervous system is under serious, ongoing stress. 2 practical steps here. First, moisturize your feet every single night before bed. A quality lotion or pure coconut oil applied thoroughly to the soles and heels, but, and this is important, never apply moisturizer between your toes. That trapped moisture becomes a breeding ground for fungal infection, which is the last thing compromised feet need. Second, hydration from the inside matters just as much as what you put on the skin. 8 glasses of water a day, every day, not just when you remember. That's number 5. Hair loss on the lower legs and the tops of the feet. Not the dramatic kind, not a sudden change you would notice in the mirror, just a gradual thinning, a quiet disappearance of the fine hair that used to be there. Patients sit in my exam chair, and I ask them to look down at their own legs, and they say, "I never noticed that." And that is exactly the problem. It is a quiet sign, easy to miss, but it carries significant weight. Hair follicles need a steady, consistent supply of blood and oxygen to function. When circulation is significantly impaired by long-standing elevated blood sugar, the follicles in the feet and lower legs slowly stop receiving what they need. Over time, they stop producing hair entirely. That absence of growth is your body sending a message about the state of your blood vessels, a message you can see every time you look at your legs if you know to look. Think of hair follicles like small plants in a garden. When the irrigation pipe narrows or becomes partially blocked, the plants don't die immediately, they just gradually stop producing. The lawn looks thinner, the plants get smaller. Nothing dramatic, nothing sudden, just a slow withdrawal. That's what peripheral vascular disease looks like from the outside of your legs. Research published in Diabetes, Obesity and Metabolism found that hair loss on the lower extremities correlates significantly with peripheral vascular disease in diabetic patients, a reliable and frequently overlooked sign that physicians are specifically trained to look for during foot exams. Many patients have this sign for years before it is identified. Right after this video ends, or even during if you have a moment, look at your lower legs and the tops of your feet. Compare the hair density to the rest of your leg. If there is a clear difference, if the lower half of your leg is noticeably thinner or bare, schedule a fasting blood glucose test this week. Not this month, this week. It costs about $12 at any certified lab, and it is covered by Medicare for most of you. $12. That is what early detection costs. That's number 4. Almost every patient I have seen with this sign tells me the same thing initially. I sit at a desk all day, or I stand on my feet for hours. Some swelling is normal. And I want to be clear, they are right, up to a point. Occasional ankle swelling after a long day is common and usually not concerning, but if your feet and ankles are consistently swollen when you wake up in the morning, before you have even stood up, or if you are leaving deep sock marks every single evening, that is a different picture entirely. High blood sugar, sustained over months and years, damages the kidneys. The kidneys are responsible for regulating your body's fluid balance. They decide how much fluid to keep and how much to release. When kidney function is impaired by chronic elevated glucose, the fluid regulation system starts to fail. Excess fluid accumulates in the lowest part of your body, your feet and ankles. The medical term is edema, and it is not just water weight. It is a visible signal that your body's filtration system is under serious stress. Think of your kidneys as the water treatment plant for your entire body. Every drop of blood passes through them to be cleaned and balanced. When high blood sugar damages the filters inside that plant, the system starts to back up. Fluid has nowhere to go except downward. Gravity does the rest. The fluid pools around your ankles, and when you press a finger into the swollen area and hold it for a few seconds, you may notice the indentation stays there for a moment before filling back in. That is called pitting edema. It is not something to wait on. The National Kidney Foundation reports that diabetic kidney disease affects approximately 1 in 3 adults with diabetes, and lower extremity edema is frequently the first visible sign that kidney function is being compromised. 1 in 3, that is not a rare complication. That is an extremely common one that shows up quietly on your ankles long before a kidney panel catches it. When you rest, elevate your feet above the level of your heart. Even a few inches on a pillow makes a difference. This helps pull that accumulated fluid back toward the center of your body. Reduce sodium in your diet. Read labels on canned and processed foods, because many of them contain far more salt than you would expect, and excess sodium tells your body to retain water, which makes edema significantly worse. And if the swelling is new, persistent, or getting worse over time, bring it to your doctor's attention at your next appointment. Do not wait for it to become a larger problem. That's number 3. I've lost count of how many times I've heard this. I've been taking ibuprofen for the foot pain for the past few months. I figured it was arthritis, maybe an old sports injury catching up with me. And sometimes that is exactly right. Arthritis is real, old injuries are real, and foot pain in people over 60 often does have a mechanical explanation. But sometimes the pain has an entirely different origin, one that no amount of ibuprofen will ever touch, because ibuprofen does not repair a damaged nerve. When nerves are damaged by chronic high blood sugar, they do not always go quiet. Sometimes they become hyperactive. Instead of going numb, they begin firing random, intense, unpredictable signals that the brain interprets as pain. Patients describe it as stabbing, like an electric shock through the foot, or a hot needle pressing up through the sole from underneath. It is most intense at night, when there are no other sensory distractions competing with it. Think of a car alarm that was damaged in a minor accident. Every few minutes, it starts screaming for no reason. Nobody is breaking in. The car is fine. The alarm is just broken. It is sending signals that no longer correspond to any real threat. That is what a damaged nerve does. It sends pain signals to your brain when nothing is actually happening to your foot. The pain is completely real. The nerve dysfunction causing it is also real. But ibuprofen does not fix a broken alarm. It just turns down the volume, and turning down the volume on a signal your body is desperately trying to send you is one of the most dangerous things you can do when blood sugar is the underlying cause. A landmark study published in the New England Journal of Medicine found that painful diabetic neuropathy affects approximately 25% of people with diabetes and is frequently and incorrectly attributed to arthritis, tendinitis, or age-related joint degeneration. 25%. 1 in 4 people with diabetes is experiencing nerve pain that is being treated as something else entirely. Every morning, before you get out of bed, and before you put any weight on your feet, spend 5 minutes on gentle stretching. Flex your feet up and down, circle your ankles slowly, pull your toes back gently toward your shin. Get circulation moving before you stand. And every night before bed, give each foot a 3-minute massage. Light circular strokes along the sole, from the heel toward the ball of the foot, then up around the ankle. It is not a cure, but it is one of the most effective ways to maintain blood flow and nerve health in the lower extremities, and it costs nothing. That's number 2. Before I get to number 1, I want to tell you about Margaret. Margaret was 68 years old, a retired librarian from a small town in North Carolina. She came to see me not because she was worried, she came because her daughter had practically dragged her in. She felt fine, she said. She was tired. Yes, but who wasn't at her age? Her feet felt a little odd sometimes, a little cold even in July, but she figured that was just her circulation being what it was. During the examination, I looked at her feet carefully. She had several of the signs I have been describing to you. Cold to the touch, even in a warm room. No hair on the lower legs. The skin around her ankles had a faint pinkish red tint she had never paid attention to. A small wound on her heel that was 4 weeks old and had not fully closed, that she had been covering with a bandage and mostly ignoring. I ordered a blood test. Her fasting glucose came back at 247. She had type 2 diabetes, and based on the degree of neuropathy and circulation impairment, her endocrinologist estimated she had likely had elevated blood sugar for 3 to 4 years. 4 years of signs. 4 years her body had been trying to tell her. She looked at me across my desk and said, "I honestly thought cold feet just ran in my family." She was not wrong to think that. Nobody had ever told her otherwise. She had never been shown what to look for. That changes today for you. And now, number one. Number one is the sign I find most often overlooked, not because it is invisible, but because most people have spent years telling themselves a completely reasonable sounding explanation for it. And unlike the burning, unlike the tingling, unlike the swelling, this one is so quiet that even many doctors walk right past it during a routine exam. Persistent cold feet. Not cold because it is winter cold. Not cold because you forgot your slippers cold. Cold in July. Cold under 3 blankets. Cold when the rest of your body is perfectly warm. Cold that does not go away with heat, does not respond to extra socks, does not improve no matter what you try. Almost every patient I see with this sign has the same answer ready. "I've always had cold feet. My husband steals the electric blanket every winter. My mother had cold feet too, and I laugh with them because it is funny and it is human, and I understand why they have told themselves that story. But then I ask, are your feet cold right now, in this warm examination room in the middle of summer? And when the answer is yes, the conversation changes entirely. Cold feet that persist regardless of the temperature around you are one of the strongest indicators of significantly compromised blood circulation in the lower extremities. Here is what is happening. Your blood vessels, damaged and narrowed by years of elevated glucose, can no longer move enough warm blood all the way down to the tips of your feet. The supply is insufficient. The extremities are starved of heat. Think of your circulatory system as a home heating system. Pipes running to every room in the house, carrying warmth from the furnace at the center. When those pipes narrow because of blood sugar damage, the heat cannot make it to the far end of the house. The last room stays cold, no matter how hard the furnace works. That cold is not about the weather outside. It is about the pipes. This condition, peripheral artery disease, caused by narrowed and stiffened blood vessels, affects over 8 million Americans, and diabetes is by far its single largest risk factor. The American Heart Association identifies persistently cold feet as one of its earliest and most consistent symptoms. And here is what makes this the number one sign. By the time your feet are chronically cold regardless of temperature, the blood vessel damage has been progressing for a long time. This is not an early warning. This is your body telling you that something needs your attention right now. Now, you might be thinking, but if this is the most serious sign, why did I leave it for number one instead of warning people about it first? Because number one needs context. You need to understand what the earlier signs look like, what the mechanism is, what the progression feels like, so that when you feel those cold feet in July and you tell yourself it is just how you are built, you will have a different framework. You will think back to the tingling, to the burning, to the slow healing wound. You will connect the dots. The single most effective response to persistently cold feet is a 30-minute purposeful walk every single day, not a stroll. A real walk, arms swinging, pace with intention. This forces circulation into the feet and lower legs, strengthens the walls of blood vessels, and over time can partially reverse some of the early narrowing that has occurred. If 30 minutes is too much right now, start with 10. Walk to the end of the street and back. The distance does not matter in the beginning. The consistency does. Start today, not tomorrow, not after you finish watching. Today. That is number one. We have covered a lot today. 9 signs, 9 chances to catch something before it catches you. Tingling and numbness that comes back without explanation. Burning in the soles at night when everything else is still. A wound that refuses to heal on its own schedule. Discoloration around the ankles you have been explaining away for years. Heel cracks that no lotion has been able to fix. Hair that has quietly stopped growing on your lower legs. Swelling in the feet and ankles that leaves marks. Pain that keeps getting misidentified as something else. and cold feet that no blanket, no season, no pair of socks has ever been able to touch. And I want to close with something Margaret said to me at her follow-up appointment, 3 months after her diagnosis. She had changed her eating habits, started walking every day, was working closely with her care team on medication. Her glucose numbers were coming down. Her feet felt warmer. She sat across from me and said, "I keep thinking about all the mornings I stood in the kitchen wondering why my feet felt strange. And I just made breakfast and moved on." Do not keep moving on. You now have 9 reasons not to. Tonight, before you go to bed, sit down in good light and look at your feet. Take 30 seconds. Look at the skin. Look between the toes. Notice the temperature. Feel for numbness. Check for any wound that should not be there. That is all I am asking. 30 seconds. And if you see or feel anything on this list, call your doctor tomorrow, because the earlier you catch this, the more completely it can be managed. In most cases, through a change in what you eat, a daily walk, and an honest conversation with someone who can help. You worked hard for the life you have, for your independence, your health, your ability to do what you love with the people you love. Do not let something as manageable as blood sugar take any of that from you, simply because nobody told you what to look for. Now you know. And hey, if you made it all the way here, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit the like button to let me know this was worth your time, and leave a comment below. Tell me what country you're watching from. Seriously, I read every single one, and it means a lot to see how far this community reaches. You know what the problem is with diabetes and high blood sugar? Most people find out way too late, and by the time they do, they have no idea where to even start. That's why I decided to create a free guide. It's called the Glucose Paradox, and inside, you'll find everything you wish you'd known sooner. I'll explain how blood sugar actually works, and why your body sometimes reacts the exact opposite way you'd expect. That's why it's called a paradox. I've also included concrete habits you can start changing right now, even if you know zero about nutrition or medicine. It's free, you can download it in a second, and it might be the single most useful thing you do for your health today. Just click the link in the description to head to the site, drop your email, and get the guide sent straight to you. Don't put this off.